Good morning, everybody. So I wanted to give a brief overview of what we're doing with the solar equipment here and why we're doing it and what it does for us. So the biggest thing here is that, the company we work for, we have to test a lot of this stuff, try a lot of this stuff, and understand a lot of this stuff. So we tend to use more of it than some people would, I guess, or we have more of it. But we also like not having a light bill. So our current light bill is the minimum required to be connected to the utility, which is about $4 and change a month. Maybe, I think it's under $4.50. Doesn't matter anyway, under $5 a month. So we have, an electric stove, electric appliances. We have a couple mini splits that use electricity to heat, and that's basically what we do. So, we have an array up here that we'll be using for testing. That one's for DC coupled. And then we have an array on the roof of the house that is all grid tied with microinverters. So we'll walk around and give you a little overview of that. It's a little hard to see from down here, but you'll see it in a lot of videos coming up. So those modules are up there on that roof facing south. Let's see if we can get around the truck here without falling down over the bank. So yeah, there you go. That's a pretty good view up there. There's a bunch of it up there that is AC coupled using microinverters, and then we have our power shed. We chose to do a power shed solely because there's not a lot of room in the building for solar equipment. So we decided to put everything over here, over right there. We decided to put everything in there in the power shed, and we'll show some of that coming up too. But essentially, what we're trying to do is create enough power to offset the light bill. The system in the shed is a battery-based grid tie system. So we have a couple things going on. We have microinverters that sell directly to the grid. And then we have the array that I showed you earlier that is DC coupled and charges batteries. So yeah, let's go in and I'll show you. I won't explain the equipment so much to you right now because that's coming up, but I'll explain to you how this works real quick so you understand what we're doing. So, see if we can get into the power shed here and get some lights on. Hold on one second. All right, so we're in the power shed, and this is a hybrid inverter. So it connects to a set of batteries, connects to the utility grid, and it powers the load. So when the utility grid fails, the inverter immediately just goes into invert mode and keeps on powering your loads from the battery bank. So it's sort of the best of both worlds. And we have a couple charge controllers right over there that are running that array we showed, this DC coupled. So what happens is the DC comes in from the modules, goes through the charge controllers right there and into a battery bank, and then the inverter sees the battery bank, and when the battery bank exceeds the cell voltage, it will push the extra energy out to the utility grid. When the utility grid fails, the inverter will just run from the batteries just as if you were off grid. So you might ask, why doesn't everybody do this? Well, there's a cost associated with this. The dollar per installed watt is going to go up drastically when you add batteries in a battery-based inverter. So if you're in an area that is very stable on utility grid, hardly any outages, it's sometimes hard to justify a battery-based backup system versus a purely grid tie system. And a purely grid tie system will be more efficient. A battery-based system inherently has more losses. Batteries have an efficiency loss, the charge controllers, the power inverter, whereas on a grid tie system, your microinverters are the only loss in the system. So they may be, say, 97, 98% efficient. Everything goes out to the grid. The other good thing about microinverters versus, like a string inverter or charge controllers is there's one per module. So shading is less of an issue. They can maximize the power of those modules. If one's dirty, one has a little snow on it, they just keep working. So that's what we're doing here. Basically, this is a 6800 watt inverter powering the house. And like I said, we'll talk a lot more about it in upcoming videos. And we have an interesting setup here because we do a lot of testing. We have a lot more equipment installed that you would normally have to do this system. I panned around and showed you the Trojan battery bank, and you'll notice there's no cables on it. That's not actually hooked up right now. We're running on a lithium battery over there. All right, so that's what we got going on here, and we just wanted to give you a quick rundown of what we're doing, why we're doing it. This is another mini split right there in the background sucking up electricity. So when it comes to solar, what we have installed, we have roughly 8,000 watts on the house. And then if we do the math, we have 320 watt modules times 24. We have about 7,600 watts installed on the barn roof that you saw. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 and a half, 15 kilowatts of PV installed. And generally speaking, around here, a kilowatt of PV will make about 1,000 kilowatt hours per year, give or take. A lot depends on, you know, where they're at. Like in the case of the ones over here on the barn, they're facing a lot more west than they should be, but we have a lot of shading early in the morning, so they run way into the night. The ones on the house are on a lot flatter angle than they should be, but it's convenient. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this. This is kind of an intro, and we're going to do a multi-part series on installing some modules, going through the power center, wiring up the power shed, you know, a bunch of that. And then we'll bring you along as we, of course, as we test all the new equipment. You know, we're excited to see how much of that we can break and, you know, improve under the development process on these new products. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.